Hello everyone, my name is Edu and this is Ready Go Expat. In today's video, I invited David McNeill to talk about his experience living in Porto, Portugal. Ready? Go.
Yeah.
The minimum wage in Portugal just went up in the beginning of 2021, and it's now, I think, 660 or 630 euros, 660 euros. It is the lowest salary in Western Europe. So, of course, the cost of living in Portugal is also low compared to any major city like London, Paris, or Rome. But the thing is, I think it really depends where you live. So I wanted to ask you again. Lisbon, as you said, by far is where rent is like, super high. You live 30-40 minutes from downtown Porto. Does that make a big difference rent-wise, like your rent?
So it's funny, you would think so. And if I lived near a couple stops on the metro from here, it would make a difference. However, given that I'm fortunate enough to live in a situation where I'm like close to the beach, I think this makes a big difference too. So it's also run up a ton here, and we love the vibe here, and we love our apartment, and we love the proximity to all of this stuff. So as of yet, I could get a cheaper rent. I've definitely considered it, but for a number of reasons, and just the fact mostly that we love this place, and it has a lot of pros for us here, and we just really enjoy it. We probably won't move from this flat for the time being. But going back to what we talked about just a minute ago, so the visas, the tax breaks, the retirement, all of this stuff is great for people like you and me coming here, for example, but it probably unsurprisingly is driving up the prices like crazy. And there's a massive supply-demand imbalance. Tons of places are being bought as investment properties. Again, the golden visas, like you talked about, people are buying these places, flipping them, or using them as Airbnbs. And you see it all over Europe. This happens in Berlin, Paris, everywhere. So it's not unique. It's an expensive city to live in for those low wages. And so being able to take advantage again of the NHR status to pay 20%, for example, if you're working here, of tax rates, so that helps. If you're able to negotiate something higher, that's great. But it's cheaper, but it's still like, if you want a nice coffee, it's still €3. It's not like suddenly the nice coffee is 150. You can get a fine local blend like I do downstairs for 65 cents.
Yes.
There are cheap options, and the Portuguese food is cheap. However, if you want to get other types of cuisine, it adds up quickly. And like here different in Lisbon probably, but here in Porto, if you want some Indian food, or you want some Korean food, or you want something else, then there's going to be a handful of options to pick from, or Thai food. And you might not just have like 20, 30, 40, 50 places to pick from of the same cuisine that you might find in London or Berlin. So things are different, and those costs are high. And again, like to your exact question, I know I've been rambling a bit, but to your exact question, here, because of the proximity to the beach and just the run up in pricing, it's really not that much cheaper. But if I were to find a place in between downtown and here, it would be. And there is just more of a question of how much do you want to be on the metro line? How much do you mind dealing with the buses that can be super late and super spotty, and they're almost basically never on time? Like you cannot expect them to be on time in any way, shape, or form if you need to get somewhere. Or do you want to own a car? So of course, again, I don't own a car, so that would be a big expense that I would otherwise have to pay. So it's a balance of all of these things. It's a ton of factors. And but I would caution people in thinking, oh, Portugal must be cheap, or that's what they heard somewhere. Like, it's changed in the last years, and I'm not sitting here saying I remember the old days, because I came as part of this wave too. So I'm not saying that, but definitely prepare. And I would say, if you want a ballpark, for my wife and I, just the two of us, I would say our baseline is about 2,000 a month. All in for our costs. And if you want to include travel or other random expenditures or more nightlife, then maybe 2,500. So it's not 500 or 1,000. Maybe if you're a single person living in a shared flat downtown, and if you're living a more simple existence, then 1,000 is probably fine. But yeah, keep in mind those 635 or whatever it is for the minimum wage, that's gross. That's not net. So really, like, you can expect people with some experience here to be making in the 2,000 to 3,000 range. And I mean, if you get well above that, then you're doing pretty well.
I would just like to say, like, to anyone listening here, do your research, because for instance, I love Lisbon. I think you, David, it's exactly what you said. Like, I'm sure I'm gonna go to Lisbon a lot of weekends, to the parties, to Rock in Rio, Lisboa, and a lot of the shows and everything. I'm gonna go there a lot. I have friends there, but I don't want to live in Lisbon. Like, I think it's exactly what you said. Like, I'd love to live like 1 hour from Lisbon. That's not a problem, you know.
Right.
Maybe 1 hour and a half by train, or I'll just buy a car. I don't know. But I wouldn't like to live downtown Lisbon, because, or not even like in the greater Lisbon area, because it's a lot of Airbnbs. They call it in Portugal alojamento local. So there's a lot of AL signs everywhere around Porto, around Lisbon. And it's kind of like for tourists. And the same thing is happening, as you just said, in Berlin, in Rome. My friend who is living near Prague said the same thing about Prague. Like, the prices went up because everyone is turning everything, flipping into like Airbnb. So, but that's just my personal opinion. As I just said, I have friends who love Lisbon and who never lived Lisbon, because, you know, that's where the best nightlife is and everything. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm in a different life stage, right? So I guess that's the key. So I had the go time of Tokyo, of Berlin, and then I just got kind of tired of it and got married, and my wife felt the same way. And like I said, we're not even in downtown Porto, let alone Lisbon. Like, we're in a small, like, beach town, and I love the vibe here.
Anyone who's thinking about moving to Portugal, from the US or from any other country, what piece of advice would you give?
I think if people are moving here, I think it's probably a good idea to maybe just come and visit. I know that's probably a common thing for most people going anywhere, but I've also known people that have moved somewhere without ever even visiting there. And I think the experience that you get is just so different, and you can understand it so much better, even as a tourist, for a couple of days. I mean, not gonna, be crazy, but go there with the mentality of, could I live there? Could I enjoy this culture? Could I enjoy this city? I mean, that's what we did back in 2018. We thought both cities were great. They both had their pros and cons, but we thought, let's see if we can make it happen, and we did. There's a lot of other places to live here than just Algarve, Porto, Lisbon. I mean, those are, some of the big ones, but depending on what you're looking for, you might find a better place. Or like, I knew a couple, an older couple that were retiring here that took a trip for a couple months across many cities, and just happened upon like their dream place, their dream house on the beach and a bit north of here. And so they couldn't find it, and then they found it, and they're really happy there. So I would just recommend people doing that if they get the opportunity to. If you don't, it doesn't hurt to go for Lisbon as like the big city, but while it's such a cool city, it's just, it has both, again, the benefits and the downsides of the big city. So it's not a bad place to start, and there's probably the most job opportunities there, to be honest. But depending on what you're looking for, again, retiring, digital nomad, working for a company, can change all of these different variables. And of course, if you want to be on the coast or inland or near Spain, or, there's so many options. And I just wouldn't paint Portugal with just one brush. There's so many different, for a small country, there's so many different options here.